We've always wanted to give a good, clean, all-American style of cheerleading. If we've got to make a change or we've got to do something to protect the athlete physically, then let's do that so that they can cheer another day. Why would I ever put a limit on not what I can do, but what this organization can do, what God can do, basically?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Steps, produced by Apolla Performance and Turning Point Dance Creations. I'm Bree Zabrowski here with Melissa McDaniel Grisham, and we're so excited to welcome today's guest. Melissa, tell everybody who we've got on Steps today.
We have Casey Jones, the owner of Stingray Cheer Company Incorporated, aka Stingray Allstars. He's the managing partner for Motus, Cheerfest, and the Cheer Expo. Casey's coached at all levels of cheerleading and has been involved in several USAF committees and other cheerleading businesses to include camps and consulting. Casey is most proud of his wife of 29 years and their 5 children. Bless you, 29 years.
30 now. 30. I needed to update that bio. Yeah.
30 years and 5 kids. Bless you. We need to have a conversation offline. I've only been married 3 years. I need your insight.
Yeah. I think brainwashing works. I just tell her how great I am every day.
Is that what it is? We're about to hit 15 years this March, and oh my goodness.
Yeah, brainwashing. Who knew? So thank you so much for being here with us, Casey.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So let's start at the very, very beginning, because we do like to start at the beginning, especially for our new guests. Tell us about the early days of Stingrays. What was the initial vision, and what were some of the biggest challenges you faced starting out, and what were those first seasons like?
Man, those early days, they were something. We were kind of making this up as we went. There were cheerleading gyms. There just weren't a lot of them. And there certainly were no manuals on how to run a cheerleading gym. So literally a lot of it, we were just trying to figure out as we go. So I do remember basically in the very, very early days of this, we were involved with a giant sports center, and they were doing all kinds of things from indoor soccer to baseball to cheerleading to golf, and just a really one of a kind, first of its kind indoor sports facility. So, we were invited to bring cheerleading into that. And at that point in time, our all-star director, Roger Schonder, he came on board, and he and I literally kind of hatched this plan in a late night Waffle House talk. So he was getting out of cheerleading. He was in pilot school. He was going to become a pilot. He was just over cheerleading. He was tired of uniforms not being on time and music not being on time and just all of these industry just issues, So he was like, I'm going to go into piloting and I'm going to do that. But, hey, let's get together for a year or two while I finish up. And he was going to help with our all-star program. And I was going to continue to focus on the business and on the class program and things like that. Because he basically, I looked up to him as a leader in the All-Stars. He had done a great job with some of his teams. So we kind of put the two things together. And early on, I remember we were studying a couple different companies, and we ran across some information that GE had put out, and the CEO, Jack Walsh, there was talking about at GE that they wouldn't make anything unless they could be number one or number two in their area. So if they were going to make TVs, if they couldn't be the best or the second best, then why make a TV? So we kind of jumped on that. And we were like, hey, maybe we should do that with our teams. Like, we don't have to have a team unless these teams can be competitive wherever they go. So that was our first goal. Like, hey, if we form a team, we believe that they should be able to go anywhere in the country and be first or second. And if we don't believe that, then let's don't have that team. So that was kind of our vision to begin with. And then it was, we want to create all teams equally so that our youngest, newest, most inexperienced athlete and family gets the exact same resources as our families and athletes that have been doing this for 10 years. So at that time, levels were just kind of starting to happen. So some of the terminology is a little different than it is now, but basically we wanted what would be considered our tiny and mini program now to be treated exactly the same as what our senior program was. So that was kind of the vision of how we were going to start out and build this thing. So, Year number one, we had 9 teams. Out of our Marietta location, I believe we have 33 full year teams, or
And that's just one location.
yes. And then we probably do another 10 to 12 half year teams. So over 40 teams in the one location. So we've been blessed with growth and great support within our community.
Well, and I think what stands out to me hearing you talk, Melissa, you know this because we've had conversations. There's a difference between building a program and having a gym or a studio or having classes. And I think the really great programs start by really being clear and defining what do we want to be, what is the goal, and you really, especially in those early stages, and Casey, tell me if you disagree with this, you really have to hold firm to that vision, and anything that doesn't get you to that end goal, you have to kind of leave it, because it can be very distracting to focus on other things, but if they don't really meet and match the brand or the vision that you're trying to work towards to create, it really doesn't serve you, especially in those beginning years. And you really have to stay vigilant about maintaining the vision that you set out to create, right?
Absolutely. The 2 key words, vision and culture, and creating that. And we've tried to create this competitive culture. That was our goal from day number one of, like I said, teams go out and they should be able to get first or second anywhere they go in the country. Well, now fast forward 20 years, and that's a lot bigger challenge than it was 23 years ago. So we have had to move the goal line, so to speak, and adjust our expectations, but at the same time, holding true to our initial expectations of like, we do this to compete. We really relish competition. That's the thing. We want to compete against the best, and we want to be in the mix against the best. And when you have 40 plus teams and you're in the kid sport business, then there's days that you're not the best, but that's okay. We're still trying. The initial way we started is still what we're doing today. We're still trying to be as competitive as we possibly can be. And that's from top to bottom, from our elite level world's teams all the way down to our prep teams.
So when I hear vision and culture was sort of that those defining terms in the early years. Do you think those 2 words still apply today? Because I know things evolve as you've been in business a long time. Maybe that vision changes a little bit. What are the core values and the principles that define your program today? And how are you all instilling and getting the buy-in from your coaches and your athletes and your families?
Well, overall, one term that comes to mind is excellence. We're just trying to be excellent in every single aspect of the business and really for us, it stems to the product that we're putting on the floor. Do these teams look well coached? Do they look like a Stingray team? Would you be able to take our uniform off, and do you still look at them and recognize them as a well-coached Stingray team, even if they don't have rays across the front? And then, like I said, it goes into every aspect of the organization, from how we look to the clothes we wear, to the socks we put on our feet, to every single thing we're doing. Are we doing it with excellence? So that's one part of it. And then the next part that's really important for me, one of our core values, is just community. Our community, especially our local community, is super important to us. That's the thing. It's not a Casey Jones thing. I want Stingrays to be a household name for something that has done tremendous things in youth sports in our area, in our county, in our state.
So the Stingray Way is really excellence. That's what it boils down to, because we hear you talk about the Stingray Way, but what is that? That's excellence.
I think the Stingray Way is also something, and I give all the credit to Roger. He came up with this in the early days. He was like, we are going to teach the 5-year-old to jump just like the 15-year-old. There is no reason that the 5-year-old can't jump like the 15-year-old. And if we teach them at 5, then we don't have to reteach them at 15. So that ultimately was the beginning, in my mind, that was the beginning of the Stingray Way of, we're going to all do the same approach for this. We're all going to do the same approach for these jumps. We're all going to jump with the same motions and things like that across our program. Now that's morphed and that's changed over nearly 25 years of being in business. But to me, that's what set the Stingray standard of trying to make everything look the same, no matter age, level, or experience.
And comparing that to dance, because I've been in a director at a studio for 21 years, and we have recreational programs that begin at 2 and go all the way up to our competitive programs. Is it that modality, that teaching modality is the same, but the expectation, the outcome are different for a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old? Because some people say, oh, you shouldn't teach 5-year-olds same thing you teach a 15-year-old because they're not physically or mentally or emotionally ready to do that. But I think you can. You just have to realize that the expectation outcome is gonna be different on a teenie versus a senior.
I agree. I think you can as well. Just maybe to me, a lot of it is time. What we found is in our area, in our community, the folks that were showing up, whether they were 5 or 15, they were showing up for the same reason. Like they were all in on cheerleading because to begin with, I'll be honest with you, with our program, we're like, maybe we shouldn't take these younger teams to NCA. And I remember the first year we went to NCA, and that was a big deal to go to NCA back then. And we weren't going to we were kicking around not taking a couple of our younger teams. Man, and those parents, they weren't for it. They're like, we want the same thing as the others. And I was like, all right, are we setting these folks up for success? And that's what they wanted. And it fit with our model of trying to make every team equal and every team competitive. And it just worked for us, and it worked for our area. We are blessed to be in an area with a lot of high-level sports. Our county is known for great baseball and great volleyball and great football. So it just fit hand in hand when cheerleading came into the mix as well to be great. And like I said, our community and our folks, they want it all. They want to compete at the highest level.
Yeah. And I love that you guys are fostering that, starting with very young all the way up to the more advanced athletes. And it seems like your families and your coaches really, they have no choice but to accept it because it's consistent across the board, right? Like it's like that from day one all the way to as they go through the program. I want to talk about your staff for a minute and the people that work with you and your teams. You have a remarkably low staff turnover rate. You've kind of mentioned this before. What's your secret to attracting and retaining talented coaches? And how do you invest in their professional development and growth? Because I'll be honest, having kids of my own and being in the dance space, it is really hard, especially when you're not in a big city, you're more suburban or whatever, to have access to high level talent consistently. And sometimes, when you go into organizations, you get that warm body mentality, like they were desperate to get somebody in the room. And it is a noticeable difference from certain other coaches and leaders. How do you guys handle that?
That's challenging, and staff is a very challenging thing. And the thing that, like I said, this gym, this organization, and the people that I work with are my family. Like we have all grown up together. So I think that's a piece of it. When you're in something together, then you tend to stick together. So I'm amazed every year when we do our senior banquet, and for a while we didn't recognize any of the coaches. We made it all about the seniors, but we've started to recognize the coaches because it just became obvious that, man, this person's been here 20 years, and this person's been here 20, and this person's been here 20. And then we've got another 5 or 6 that are on the cusp of being here 20 years. And then it hit me of like, man, we've got something really special here. But it's changed over the years. I'll be honest with you. When I first came into this business, it was my goal to lock somebody in and like, man, I want them to sign this lifelong contract to be at Stingrays and never go anywhere else. And that was kind of my goal. And that has now changed to like, hey, if this is a great person, number one, number two, they love kids. And number three, they're competitive and willing to work hard. We want them to be part of our organization, even if it's only 3 or 4 years while they're finishing up college, or even if it's only a few years before they start their family or whatever. So it has changed a little bit, but also what we find out when those people become part of our community, it could be that they cheer for us and then they go off to college and then they come back, or they cheer for us and they start a different career. And then once that gets locked in, then they come back and coach a team or two. So we really like to recruit from within, people that have been part of our organization. A large part of our staff either cheered for us or, has been part of our organization ongoing or either before. So we recruit from within. And now what we're doing, we've got a new manager on board, and she comes out of the corporate world, and she's really, really smart. And she has helped us to develop a training program. We call it our CIT program, coach and training program. And she spent the last 2 years kind of putting that together, also working with Roger and taking some of his advice. And we take these coaches, and we don't stick them with a team for a year. We bounce them around to some different teams so that they get to see different coaching styles within our gym. Because one thing that's big for us, we want our coaches to be able to coach with autonomy. We want them to coach their way to the Stingray standard, the Stingray way, but get it done in your way with your, having freedom to make decisions on your own, because we trust them. And I think sorry, I'm getting long-winded there, but I think that's another part of the longevity. When you can trust someone and give them ownership of their piece, then I think that's something that also makes them want to stay around.
Yeah, and you're creating somewhere obviously that people want to be part of. And so no matter where their journey takes them, it seems like, your door is open to welcome them back in any capacity, once they've been a part of it. So I think it's beautiful the way that you guys are doing that.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's come full circle. When we first got our start at the start, I was like, hey, sign this lifelong contract. And if you work here, you got to do every single thing we do. You got to teach summer camps and coach a team and teach classes and do this. And we realized that not everybody was good at every single thing. So then we sort of developed specialists, and we have people that are part of our program that only coach one team, but they're valuable to have on board to coach. I mean, not always super efficient business wise, but they're valuable.
Yeah. And the problem in the beginning of anything is like, everybody, when they're bought into that vision, they're on board, they're excited. But as their star rises and they get other opportunities to build a name for themselves, then it starts to be, I can't grip them so tight. I have to let them spread their wings and go. And then hopefully they come back and they remember that, we were a great place to be. But it is a struggle with coaches. Everybody, I think, obviously the athletes that are in your building are really important, and the families that pay the money are really important. But I think oftentimes at, insert dance studio, soccer club, cheerleading gym, whatever, the coaches and the leadership get overlooked in terms of the value. And they're the ones with the boots on the ground every day. They're in the room, they're molding and shaping these athletes. Are incredibly important people to the organization. And so I love how much you guys value that.
It's year round. Their job is so hard because it is year round. And it's like, hey, here's 24 kids, and you got to work with them 6 to 9 hours a week for an entire year. And you've got to work with these other two coaches standing beside you, and y'all need to get along, and everybody needs to get on the same page, and you need to go win the competition, and you need to do that for 12 straight months.
And you need to be a motivator and a counselor and a dictator at times. Like, you got to be all of it. You got to wear all the hats.
It's super hard, and that's the thing. Like, to me, you can't lead with fear. And I learned that the hard way because I used to be fearful. I was like, man, what happens if coach such and such leaves? They're an awesome coach. Because we have been so blessed to have so many long-term coaches, but some great coaches along the way have moved on for multiple reasons, and sometimes it's to pursue a different or a better opportunity. And what I've realized is that we have built a program that is bigger than any one coach or any one owner or any one director. And that's a thing of like, I hope I don't disappear tomorrow, but I'm confident that if I did disappear tomorrow, that the Stingray Allstars would still be great. Heck, they may be a little better.
I seriously doubt that. Seriously doubt that. So, Casey, the cheer industry has changed dramatically, I'm sure, over the past 2 decades as the dance industry has. How have you adapted to these changes, and what are some of the biggest trends that you see that are shaping the future of cheerleading?
Oh my goodness, there have been so many changes, but also I'm a big believer in that history repeats itself. So it's like bell bottoms; they come in and out of style. So a lot of the same things in cheerleading are that. So to me, one of our biggest challenges is remaining true to our roots. Stingrays we've always wanted to give a good, clean, all-American style of cheerleading. That's basically, I used to practice my used car salesman speech. We offer good, clean, all-American cheerleading at a great low rate. So that was my spiel back in the day, kind of jokingly. But as things change around you, you've got to basically move and flow with the times, but also stay true to who you are. Because something that we preach and promote to our coaches, to all of our staff, and to our athletes, that we do Stingrays really, really well. We can't do another program really well. So something may come in style that's not us, and that doesn't mean that's wrong, but we're not very good at emulating people. So we want to continue to do what we do, and then hopefully through our great stunts and choreography and strong foundation of just good standards in cheerleading, then that's what's moving the needle, and that's what keeps us relevant, so to speak.
Yeah. So athletic safety is very important. It's paramount to longevity, and which is what we're kind of talking about today. What specific measures do the Stingrays take to prioritize safety and well-being for your athletes in practice, injury risk management protocols, etc.?
So I think the biggest thing, this is a pretty generalized thing, because obviously we have a list of do this, do this, do this. Here's our medical procedures, all of this, but it's put the athlete first, and then also realizing that this practice, this performance, this competition, we're just coming out of a big cheer sport weekend. It doesn't matter, is we don't ever want to put an athlete in a position to where this is their last thing. So we're not going to risk that. That's the thing. If we've got to make a change or we've got to do something to protect the athlete physically, then let's do that so that they can cheer another day. If they've got to sit out this practice or this competition in order to be able to cheer in 2 months from now, then let's take those precautions up front. Because when an athlete's injured, whether it's career ending or not, if they're off the floor long term, then that's not good for anyone. It's not good for the athlete and their family. It's not good for our program. It's just not a good spot to be. So the main thing is basically, trying to stop that injury from happening before it does. So are we doing the strength training? Or are we doing the things that we can to best help the athletes be strong and flexible to limit those injuries? And frankly, over the years, we have tried 15 different things, and somebody shows up at our doorstep every year with, hey, I got this new plan. Let me come in, and I can guarantee that no cheerleaders will ever get hurt. And it's just not the case. So a lot of what we have found is really, we know what to do. We've got to train these athletes to the sport that they're doing. We're not marathon runners, so we're not going to go and work on our long distance running. We're going to work on plyometrics and different things like these explosive movements and mobility for the kids, and having a proper warm up, proper cool down, those things.
Yeah, that's one of the things, I would be remiss in not having this conversation with you on. But, Apolla was very fortunate to partner with Stingrays Allstars, this season, and hopefully for many years to come. And that was one of the things that I think for us was really appealing about the partnership, is just the value you all place on injury risk management, we'll call it, because injury prevention is not a real thing. It's injuries are going to happen when you're doing a sport, but we want to mitigate that risk of injury as much as possible, which is totally the language we speak all the time on the Apolla side. So finding an organization that really holds those values true to heart was really important to us, to showcase what our products can do. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, just your guys' experience with Apolla Socks. How are your athletes and your coaches feeling about them? Have you seen, a reduction in the injury and the aches and the pains and the swelling that come along with so much of this overuse?
Yeah. So heck, the introduction started with me. You and I met, and then I was training for a big event, 29029, and you sent me some socks, and I used those socks for some training, and I thought they were wonderful. So yeah, and I wore Apollo socks a lot especially for the training of that. So that's the thing of like myself, like I love to be active. And as I've aged, I have learned that, man, a lot of what I did when I was younger is not helping me to be active today. So it becomes more important for me to teach my own kids and the kids at our gym and things like that of what they can do, what equipment's out there, what training is out there. And the socks fall right into line with that, because I think the I think the thing is early in cheerleading, we are similar to gymnastics in the aspect of the floor tumbling. A gymnast, they don't tumble with shoes, so they often have great support with tape or this or that or whatever. But, it was viewed as, man, they can do a double full because they're not wearing shoes and they don't have anything weighing them down. So you notice that all the cheerleading shoes went lighter and lighter and lighter, which honestly, I don't think that's something that's evil. As a person, as a runner, as a hiker, as all that, I've got some heavy, thick, supportive shoes, and then I have some that are minimalist. And then I also think it's great to go and walk on the beach in the sand barefoot. So anything is fine within moderation. But the thing is, as cheerleading has gotten tougher, our kids are practicing 6, 9, sometimes during camps and things like that, upwards of 10 plus hours a week. And you've got to have the proper equipment. So I think that's where socks come in great because obviously you can explain that way better than me, but supporting arches, supporting calves and different things like that, because as the level of cheerleading has gone up and the kids, everything's bigger, faster, stronger, we're seeing injuries that we never used to see. I remember the very first time we had an athlete tear an Achilles in our gym, and we called our trainer that worked with us at the time, and he didn't believe us. He like literally got on his motorcycle to drive over the gym because he's like, I've never seen a 15-year-old tear an Achilles before. Well, that's a thing now, but back then we had a kid or two on a team throwing a double full. Now you have a whole team of it. Yeah, so those things are happening. So what can we do to support them, And socks, shoes, training, all of those things work hand in hand. So for us, this is our first year in the socks. And I am, and this is probably not, I don't know, maybe Bree doesn't want to hear this. I'm not a, hey, y'all are wearing this. I'm more of and let me introduce you to something, and we introduce you to it. And then, hey, does that feel good to you? If it does, wear it. If it doesn't, don't. Well, if you don't, and then you're having issues with your calves or you're this, maybe you should, then that's when I re-enter. Maybe you should try this. Maybe that'll help. And yeah, yeah. So honestly, I think our best reception of the socks came from some of our older athletes, which makes perfect sense because like our electric man, those kids, a lot of them are older, and their bodies are getting to the point where they're starting to be somewhat limited in what they can do. And they jumped all like full in on these socks and love them. And the thing is, it turns into how do we educate the younger athletes to like, listen, you can't prolong aging, but if you do these things, then hopefully it's is far on down the line before you start to be limited with your physical capabilities. We want to keep that, we want to keep moving as long as we possibly can. So if there's tools that can help you do that. So honestly, I think that a lot of our older kids have embraced it. A lot of our younger kids are curious about it. And I think that year 2 and 3 are going to be when you see the real results.
And that truly is. And then in having athletes of that caliber wearing them and showing, hey, this is important to us, hopefully trickles down to those younger ones. But that's why it's so important for coaches and leadership and any safety protocols and measures. And this falls under that umbrella, but to understand and be aware of what's out there, and hopefully the more you can introduce it, the more people are going to respond, the more people are going to use it. And then hopefully 10 years from now, we're having another conversation where we've seen injury rates start to go way down. And you're absolutely right. This is Apolla Socks are one tool in of huge tool belt or toolkit of tools that an athlete should have at their fingertips, whether it's practice and in recovery, and basically anytime they're moving, they should be thinking about how they're going to take care of their instrument, their body, because as performance athletes, we have one thing. We don't have a ball. We don't have, there's no nets. There's nothing going on. This is the equipment. And yeah, you can't buy a new one. You got to take care of it. So that is a big challenge, is just in general, people they really have to get people to understand, like, this is preventative. This is preventative as much as it is to address an injury. It's also preventative. So we're so excited about
I
the
think I,
partnership.
I think it's absolutely going to happen because it's a wonderful product. Like I said, I used it. I believe in it, and there are many things that I believe in. But I found with our kids and our thing, like if you make something mandatory, everybody wants to go against it. If you introduce and you educate, then everybody gets on board.
Well, we've loved it. We've absolutely loved it. We love working with you guys. Your athletes are top notch. You guys are top notch organization, and so glad that especially those older elite athletes are noticing such a difference. It's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for believing in us to sponsor some socks for our kids and get it out there and let us give them a try. So
So I want to get to something that's near and dear to me. Let's talk about environment and culture of the gym or of the space, because you were talking a little bit earlier about community and your staff turnover, and that having such low turnover, and they have to love kids and want to work hard, but then you get enter parents from stage right, and enter, you have so many people that are a part of the community. It's not just about, I think if we could teach or coach and just be coach kids, we'd be happy all day long. But there's so many factors that come into it. So how do you foster such a strong sense of community among athletes and their families?
first of all, I think our parents are great. I mean, literally great. We have some of the finest families in the gym in our community, and I would say 99% of them are there wanting to add to the Stingray All Stars. It is not. They don't come with a hey, what are you going to do for me, or what are you going to do for my kid? It's like, hey, we want to join an organization where we can add to. So really, really proud of our parents and what they do. Now, with that, there are challenges because you are dealing with their most prized possession, which is their kid. Heck, I got five of them. Like, I know, that's the thing that's the most valuable to us. And we are often looking at our own children through a different set of glasses than everybody else is. I may be the opposite on that. I think I'm harder on my kids than everybody else, but but a lot of people, like, where they see their kids' abilities are not always in line with exactly where their abilities are. But then you fix that through communication. And we try to over communicate. We try to communicate multiple ways with our families, because not everybody communicates the same. So there's a lot of emails and a lot of Facebooks and a lot of group meetings and a lot of this. And like we send out the information four different ways, and people still don't read. But then we will get on and do a Facebook Live and you know try to share the information that way. So that's a big part of it. And then it's ultimately like realizing, and this is the part that I hate because I'm a people pleaser. I don't like conflict. But the reality is, our program just isn't for everyone. And there are times where we have to have that conversation of, hey, you keep questioning what we do, which is fine. We don't have a problem with that. But you might want to go somewhere else that offers a different product and a different service. We do not claim to have the only system for teaching cheerleading. There are a lot of gyms that do it differently than we do and do a fine job of it. So we only do what we know how to do. So unfortunately, that has to happen sometimes, but then I find that then that even increases and makes your environment and your culture better, because if something doesn't fit there, you've got to get it out.
Melissa, like, are you having deja vu? Because I just feel like this is just a theme with really great anything. It's the commitment to the vision when you start. And it's hanging on to those values, even when it's hard and even when it means that it's not the right fit for everybody else or somebody else, saying, being okay with letting that go and saying, we're just not for you and sticking true to who you are. I mean, those are the two common denominators we see on the show over and over again.
I really have to give like a lot of our staff, like I said, Roger, I give him a lot of credit on that. I am the people pleaser. I want to make it work longer than, I mean, when it's blatantly obvious that it doesn't work, then I want to give it one more chance. But that's all good because we balance each other out in that way. But we really do care about our customers and the kids that are there. We want them to have a great experience because in any service business, your best advertising is word of mouth, and that's a thing that I kind of love and hate. There is not anywhere in our town where I don't go into and there's not a Stingray sticker. Like I'm not going to the doctor, to the dentist, to the grocery store, to anywhere without running into a Stingray or a former Stingray. So, man, I don't want someone drilling on my teeth that had a bad experience in our gym. So,
That's a good point. That is a solid point, and honestly, one I haven't heard, so I love it. What advice would you give to somebody looking at you and saying, I want to do that? I want to do my own cheer program and establish a gym. What is the one piece of advice you would say to somebody who aspires to reach the level that you've reached?
I had a couple key pieces that really changed my life. So early on getting in business, I had an accountant and she told me something. She was like, hire people to do the things that you're not good at. And when I was getting started, I'm telling you, I had no money, none. I wouldn't have been in business if it weren't for a cheer parent. I didn't come from family money or anything like that. So everything was tight. So back in the day, gyms did not have a front desk. They just didn't have one. The owner usually had we didn't have cell phones back then. So had a mobile phone on their hip. They're out there teaching classes, trying to answer the phone, trying to book the class, trying to do that. That was the one thing that set us apart because I was like, there's no way I can afford a front desk manager or a front desk. And my accountant was like, there's no way you can afford not to have one. And we were literally the only gym in town that had that. And that's what we were doing on the floor. That was awesome. But that's what set us apart, that somebody was there to answer that phone at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that was a key piece. And then the next piece was it hit me like a ton of bricks at about the age of, I don't know, 26, 27. And it was a fear thing. So it's like, hey, I own this gym. I need to coach the highest level teams, the highest level kids. I need to teach the highest level. I need to be the best stunt coach, the best tumbling coach, the best at everything here because I own this place. And then one day this thought came into my head, and I don't know where it came from, probably a God thing of like, man, what if everyone that worked for you or around you or beside you was better than you? And I was 26, 27. I had kind of a big ego. I was like, God, man, we'd be great. So then it was like, put myself and my ego aside, and I'm going to go out and try to find the best staff that are far better than me. And at that time, that was a scary thing because back in the day, it was kind of a rough world and somebody work at a gym and yeah, leave. Yeah. So, but I took that risk, and I surrounded myself with people that are greater than me. And I still surround myself with people like the people that work with me are way smarter than I am. I'm just smart enough to stay out of the way and let them do their thing. So those things, hire people that do the things you can't do, and then surround yourself with the best people. And then number 3, go for it. I often get asked the question, could you ever imagine Stingrays being this big? Absolutely. From day one, I could imagine it being this big because I also had someone challenge me early on and, they were like, what do you want out of life? And I remember answering this question. I was like, man, if I could work my way up and I could make, I forget what the number was. This was 30 years ago, but it was basically if I could make a living, white picket fence, 2 kids, a dog, a wife. That's what I want. Exactly that. And they laughed in my face and they were like, that's cool. It sucks that you would limit yourself to that. And man, it made me mad and it changed me. It changed me. Like I changed that day of like, literally changed that day of like, why would I ever put a limit on not what I can do, but what this organization can do, what God can do, basically. Yeah. Don't limit it.
It's beautiful though. Thank you for sharing that.
I think it's time for homework, Bree.
Yeah, let's do it. So, Casey, you don't know this, but every week we give homework to those people out there watching and something they can accomplish or really feel like they've made progress in this area, that everything we're talking about today. What's one thing you want to challenge people out there to do between now and next week's show?
Invest in yourself, but also invest. Those are things I am 53 years old, and it was always told to me by everybody to invest. And that doesn't mean necessarily going and starting your 401k or funding your Roth. A lot of early on was investing back into the business is what I was doing. But like the best day to start investing, if you haven't started, is today.
That's your homework. It's simple enough. You could do that. Our homework is the same every week. We want to challenge you all to take the STEPS Initiative course. This is completely free for any organization, staff, faculty, athlete, their families. We're going to give courses, evidence-based research and information and resources on gender inequity, sex abuse prevention, nutrition, psychology, medicine and science, and how those things apply to performance athletes. And by no stretch is this everything you need to know on these topics, but it does lay a very solid foundation and hopefully give you more information to sort of explore these things deeply on your own. Again, completely free. Every module was curated by experts in their field. So we encourage you to take a look at that. Casey, tell us how people can find out more about Stingray Allstars, you get in touch with you all. Tell us all the things.
Easiest way is our website, www.stingrayallstars.com. You can always reach out to me via email, casey@stingrayallstars.com. I'm also involved in a great organization called Motus. Our principles there, core principles, are to increase participation in cheerleading and then to help gyms to increase their profit. We want to grow the gym business to be able to offer the great sport of cheer to even more athletes. So you can also reach me there at casey@joinmotus.com. So any of those ways, I love to talk shop. I really, really love business. So do not hesitate to ever reach out to me if you got any business questions or things like that. I don't coach as much anymore, so I'm not your guru on that. But even if you have questions there, I can get you answers with some of the greatest coaches in the world that I work side by side.
Really fantastic organizations, Stingrays and Motus, fantastic people at both. And Casey, thank you so much for the conversation today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure.
That is another episode of Beyond the Steps. I'm Melissa McDaniel Grisham here with Bree Zabrowski, and just enjoyed this amazing conversation with Casey Jones. Thank you for being a first-time guest on Beyond the Steps. You can find this episode, if you did not catch it from the beginning, and all of our episodes on YouTube at Apolla Performance or at TP Dance Creations. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. We will be back next week with another fantastic episode. Don't miss it. Until then, continue your journey beyond the steps.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a great day, everyone.